Hey everyone, I'm Jay Smith, and this is Bradley Kendall, and this is After Further Review. And even though it's the off season, we're not taking any time off. We're back again in the Tigervision studios to discuss some college football. We're going to go over National Signing Day as well as some big news for Clemson. Obviously, they opened their new facility, and they've signed a lot of recruits. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So Bradley, After Further Review?
It's never too early to start talking about college football.
Absolutely right. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, before we get into the college football discussion, we are going to note that starting next week, we're going to move to a new time, Tuesdays at 8:15 in the evening, and hopefully that'll work better with everyone's schedule, so looking forward to that. We're also going to try and incorporate commercials into this semester shows. We're reaching out to different organizations on campus and seeing if they're interested in doing little 30-second spots that we can kind of break up and do different when we're doing different segments on the show. We also hope to have a lot more guests on and do more roundtable discussions similar to what we did with the playoff preview show with Jack and Evan late last semester.
And now that it's the offseason, we got a lot more to talk about besides individual games, so we'll definitely have some different kind of discussions, to mix in there throughout the semester. So.
Quick shout out though to Evan McDowell, now the new host of or co-host of On the Prowl here at Tigervision, but he won our Bowl Mania challenge, so congratulations to Evan. Job well done.
Very insulting. His name was, "This is going to be too easy."
Well, I thought I had it for a long time. Honestly, we had some really good finishes. I think we had 3 guys in the top 10%.
Yeah.
I slipped pretty far down later on in the bowl games, but a lot of guys had really good finishes.
They really did. Yeah, it was really good for our group. Yep. I really enjoyed it.
We're going to go ahead and get into National Signing Day, though. That's obviously the big news that's been dominating college football the last couple of days. We've got the top 10 recruiting classes on the table in front of us. Let's go ahead and start off with Alabama, number 1.
Yep, you knew this was coming. I saw an article written yesterday that said, Ohio State, Urban Meyer had his best class, Florida State got the best player, but of course, Bama's up top. And, obviously the preseason rankings next year probably going to transition. Also, they'll be number 1.
Yep.
But just another year for Nick Saban, bringing in a bunch of 5-stars. They had 26 overall recruits. Not like they really had to reload anyway, but, they're just going to continue to bring in big talent.
How do you know exactly the number of 5-stars? Because I want to say it was...
Oh, God. Looking at them now, it'll take me a while to count them. It's at least, it looks like it's about 1, 2, 3, 4. They had 5 stars, which I think was top in the country.
Wow, yeah. Because you normally only see maybe 1 or 2, even to big-name schools. But for Bama to pull in 5, obviously that's not unusual for them. I think I saw a stat where they've had, in the last 10 years, they've had a recruiting class in the top 3 each of those years. So obviously we can go on and on and on about the sustained excellence of Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide.
It was kind of interesting, though, because there was a stat yesterday on ESPN that was kind of breaking down the last 3-year average of the class rankings and the last 5 national champions.
Yeah.
And Clemson, out of all the teams in there, was at like 9, way below everyone else, in terms of average finish in classes. So obviously your goal was to finish in the top 10 recruiting classes, and that's shown that it's been the last 5 champions.
I think they made that note that basically if you were in the top, if you averaged in the top 5, you were at a pretty good point where you could contend for a national championship. And obviously, like you just pointed out, Clemson kind of broke that mold a little bit, being down at 9. But still, you have to. Obviously,
it's impressive.
You have to have a solid recruiting class in order to compete at the highest level.
And for Clemson, after winning a championship, that's always going to help.
Definitely.
I know they only had 14 recruits, which is very surprising, lowest since 2009, but
and still crept into the top 10 nationally.
Which
so
is
that
very,
just speaks, to those
speaks volumes. Absolutely. Dabo said we got better. That's all we needed. So definitely.
Well, obviously number 2 is Ohio State. The Buckeyes, they pulled in 21 different recruits. Can you tell us a little bit about some of them?
Ohio State, I know since JT Barrett obviously is going to be coming back next year, they didn't really have to fill a void. At quarterback, they did have the youngest team last year, so a lot of guys kind of developing. They're going to be at their second year under the belt or their third year maybe. So I didn't really get a chance to look at in depth on their recruiting class, but I know they have a lot of backups and starters from last year that are going to be coming into shape.
I'm looking here right now. They're pulling in number 1 cornerback Sean Wade and number 1 safety Jeffrey Okada, I think is how you say his last name. So they're definitely heavy on the defensive side of the ball in terms of this recruiting class. Obviously with their loss to Clemson in the playoff semifinal this past year, 31-0, it not only raised offensive questions but also raised questions about defense, coaching, in general. So hopefully with this recruiting class, the Buckeyes will be able to buck up their defense.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on, though, we're going to look at number 3, the Georgia Bulldogs. I know that,
For Kirby Smart, very impressive.
I know SEC obviously has a lot of reputation, but still for Georgia to be in the top 5, I thought was extremely impressive.
Yeah, coming off a year, I think they finished 8-5. Kirby Smart, his first year under his belt, still trying to learn the system and get, establish himself there. But, for an SEC powerhouse like that, it's obviously you kind of see that coming. But, good kudos to him for bringing in those recruits right there.
Yeah, 26 total recruits. Again, obviously Georgia, has reputation to the but it's still, you couldn't have asked for a better recruiting class.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Top and he's a defensive guy, so they saw what he did at Alabama. Obviously, they're going to be intrigued by the way he runs his defense, and in the SEC, he needs these recruits if he's going to try and compete with Saban.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Number 4, we have our first ACC school in Florida State. They signed 22 recruits. I'm looking here right now on ESPN's Way Too Early Top 25, which is
that what you're on?
out.
I was trying to look for that, yeah.
And they have them at number 2, in large part to their recruiting class. Now, obviously, they have some key losses like Dalvin Cook, DeMarcus Walker, and let's see, they're losing a lot of wide receivers. But, signing this recruiting class should help reload, and they should be back in contention for an ACC championship in the fall.
Absolutely. Off a 10-3 season, a little bit down for Jimbo Fisher, but he's in a prime state in Florida. You can't really go wrong there. Being there is a lot of competition, but top-notch facilities, top-notch program. You saw that coming a mile away. Florida
and now
State
with Charlie Strong, you speak of Florida, such a hotbed for football. Obviously you have Florida and Florida State and other big names, Miami. Mark Richt, he's there now, but now you have Charlie Strong at South Florida. So it'll be interesting to see how all these big name coaches like Jimbo Fisher and Mark Richt and Charlie Strong and McElwain at Florida, how they're able to, marginalize different parts of the state, market is their territory is basically what I'm trying to say, and pull recruits from different areas. It'll be interesting to watch that battle.
And now with Lane Kiffin, I don't know if you mentioned that or
That's
not,
right,
Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
So, a lot of coaches vying for those guys in Florida. Luckily, it's a big state, but you might see them try and reach out maybe to other states around the country and look for big recruits. Because the Southeast, let's just be honest, on its own is a huge hub for college football.
Yeah,
it is ridiculous.
States like Texas and Florida, even Georgia. You get Taj Boyd from Gainesville.
Of course, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Taj was from Virginia, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Deshaun was from Gainesville, but lots of talent in the southeastern area for sure. Moving on, though, at number 5 was the USC Trojans. They pulled in 23 recruits. And, again, we kind of expect this year in, year out, similar to an Alabama. May not quite be at that level, but Southern Cal, the name speaks for itself.
Of course. They went through a couple years where I know, coming off a lot of rough years, trying to find head coach and all that, they were still up there, but some of the guys just weren't panning out the way they wanted to. But as of now, it looks like they got an established quarterback in Sam Darnold going forward, and they brought in a lot of talent. They made some huge splashes yesterday.
Well, they lost. Obviously they're going to lose Juju Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver. But the thing is they're pulling in the number 1 wide receiver, Joseph Lewis. So they're reloading that position. No problem, because it was arguable that Mike Williams, Juju, those types of receivers, some of the best in the country. But by being able to pull in somebody like Joseph Lewis, who's again ranked number 1 receiver in the country. That just, again, shows that no matter who's coaching at USC, they're always going to pull in talent.
And it's glad they have an actual coach now that they can rely on. Clay Helton looks like he's finally got his job, even though, we were wondering, is he the big-name guy they were looking for? But, coming off a year, they're 10-3, 7-2 in the Pac-12. That speaks for itself.
And I don't think it's really a bad thing that someone like Clay Helton is coaching at USC, because I know that they have this desire to kind of get the big name people.
They're in the spotlight.
Right, they're in the spotlight, they're out near Hollywood and all that, but at the same time, it may be good to have someone who's a little bit more under the radar and hasn't quite established himself as a big name coach, come in, kind of build up the program in his sort of way and his sort of, ideals. And maybe they'll have more success than they've had recently.
And it almost just took the pressure off him. I know it was a lot of pressure to perform and all that at USC, but a lower name guy, you didn't really expect much out of him. 10-3 a couple years ago wouldn't have looked as good as it does now.
And they finished off strong with the win against Penn State in the Rose Bowl. That was, I'm sure, huge momentum boost for them, the coaching staff especially. So, again, USC, great recruiting class, top 5. We're going to look at number 6 now, and that is Michigan. And they signed 29 recruits. And I'm scrolling through, and I believe that is tied for the most. Nope. You've got BYU down at 70 with 34.
Wow.
But Michigan is
they're loading up on the 3 stars down there
with Maryland. So Maryland at 20. also has 29 recruits. Michigan at number 6.
And Michigan needed them.
Recruits.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. They had only 4 returning starters on offense, only 1 on defense, and 0 on special teams.
Yeah.
So literally just a complete flip. They're going to be doing a complete 180 next year. But you know Jim Harbaugh. You know, you've seen all those recruiting videos of him jumping into pools.
Yeah.
You know, climbing
He'll
up
do
people's
anything for a
trees.
recruit.
He'll do absolutely anything. So he worked his magic this offseason. You know, Michigan doesn't look like they're really going anywhere. You know, paired with USC, it looks like the traditional powerhouses could be coming back.
I'm looking here, and they signed number 4 receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones.
I've heard a lot about him.
What the last name?
Yeah.
Number 1 center Cesar Ruiz. Number 6 defensive end Luigi Villian, and number 6 pocket passer Dylan McCaffrey, who is actually the younger brother of Stanford's.
I'll tell you what,
McCaffrey.
that family has got so many athletes, it's not even fair.
To be able to go to schools like Stanford and Michigan.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, yeah, you know, obviously Michigan's a blue blood of college football, and Stanford has definitely established themselves within the last 6 to 7 years. But yeah, it speaks to that family's.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And Michigan, they will lose a lot. I mean, they're obviously going to have to, you know, revamp their system, losing, you know, a guy like Jabril Peppers, I believe. I can't remember. Yeah, Jake Butt's leaving too.
Yeah,
they
everyone's leaving.
Still have Wilton Spate to build around at the quarterback position, but you know, Michigan. It's curious to see where they're going to be after a successful year like this. Are they going to be able to match that success going forward?
Yeah. And at number 7, LSU, the Tigers, they signed 23 recruits. Honestly, a really good class for Coach O.
Absolutely,
He did very well to be able to sign all those players.
And that was the question, you know, with Les Miles, they knew he could recruit. They knew he had done it for so many years. But that was the one kind of, you know, thing we were wondering about at Orgeron was could he actually recruit?
Yeah.
Go into the house and take over and, you know, convince guys to come to LSU. And it looks like he did that.
I mean, I know that he was always a good recruiter at Ole Miss when he coached there, and then he went out to USC into the interim job there for a little while. And I think that the players really enjoyed playing for him. I think he's a player's coach, similar to Dabo, maybe a different style, but the same type of gist. And yeah, I mean, if even though they went 8-4 this past year, you know, not the season that they really wanted, but again, it's a building year. There was a lot of transition, behind the scenes type stuff. So I mean, with this type of recruiting class, they could reestablish themselves in the SEC.
And a lot of the problem revolved around the quarterback. I mean, they had a guy, Danny Etling, who came, I believe, from it was either Purdue or Iowa, had won like 1 game in his career, so had 0 experience at all. And that was kind of the thing that people wondered was with Les Miles, he didn't really want to change his system. He always kept it the way it was, and it was very, you know, predictable and all that. Now LSU signed the number 4 pocket passer, Miles Brennan, and a dual threat quarterback, which you don't really see at LSU a lot. So it'll be interesting to see where Orgeron goes with that.
2 really good quarterbacks that, you know, will be able to lead the program regardless of who gets the starting position.
And they've got a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada from Pittsburgh. So you know, fresh start.
A lot of change for the Tigers, but I think that Coach O is the man to get the job done.
A lot of faster tempo. Diversity in the offense, for sure. Yep.
At number 8, we have Bob Stoops, Oklahoma. They signed 27 recruits, and let's see if I can find them on the list. So, yeah, obviously they're losing D.D. Westbrook. They lose Joe Mixon.
They're running back Pirine.
Yeah, so, I mean, but again, with a recruiting class like this, and I mean, everybody knows Bob Stoops is a recruiting, you know, I mean,
guru.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, not too surprising that Oklahoma is this high in the recruiting rankings, but after, you know, all the talk about the Big 12 and is it college football playoff potential, and now that they're getting their championship game this coming year, I mean, they went 9-0.
Way to get smart, Big 12.
They went 9-0 in the Big 12 this year. So you would think with a recruiting class like this and Stoops at the helm and the dominance that they displayed last year, they should be able to cruise. And with the championship game, possibly a playoff berth here.
That's going to be huge. I think I saw something about the Big 12. Oklahoma was like the only Big 12 school that had even really recruited a 5-star athlete or even brought in a top-notch, you know, player coming to this year. And Oklahoma, they lose both the running backs, but they do bring in Trey Sermon, the number 8 tailback, and a JUCO tailback, Markelius Sutton. So, you know, they have a lot of spots they need to replace, but it looks like they got a lot of guys that can fill in that void.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think Oklahoma is the only Big 12 team in the top.
Yeah, outside of Texas.
Outside of Texas, and Texas is at 33. So the only team in the top 30 from the Big 12 is Oklahoma.
So it looks like, again, like the Big 12 could just be on Oklahoma's shoulders.
Well, yeah, because Texas, obviously, with the new coach, Tom Herman, I mean, they signed 18 recruits. They're sitting down at 33rd, not where Texas is used to be sitting. But, you know, obviously it's a building year for them, and they're going to hopefully get back into it, as the season progresses and a few years down the road.
And Herman said he wanted to be kind of cautious with the recruits.
Yeah.
It is his first year.
And Dabo only signed 12. I think he calls them this dandy dozen. I think he signed 12 guys his first year, and they all graduated and everything. So, I mean, I understand where Herman's coming from, but like you just pointed out, I mean, Oklahoma, right now, I think, is the safest pick for a college football playoff berth, now with the addition of a championship game in the Big 12.
Yeah, and you saw West Virginia, surprise people this year. They kind of crept up. TCU kind of fell off, but they might be back, with Gary Patterson, and I think they still have their quarterback from last year. So could be a little shakeup, but that's probably the most predictable.
Right, it's the safe bet right now is Oklahoma for the Big 12. Yeah. Moving on, though, we're going to look at Auburn. They finished at number 9. They signed 23 recruits. Let's see if we can pull up the Tigers.
11 preseason, yep.
Are they? They're ranked 11th in ESPN.
A lot of returning starters. They had 9 offense and 8 defense coming back. So they're, they figured things out towards the end of the year last year. They do bring in, let's see, who are they losing? They don't lose many guys. I'm looking at. They return Carl Lawson, defensive end. He was the big name guy. They're not going to be able to bring back. But I think if they finally establish a quarterback. It looks like they're getting some offensive linemen to protect their quarterback, which was kind of a problem.
And they signed a new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey. He was at Arizona State. So, I mean, do you think that with them returning so many starters and with a top 10 recruiting class, do you think that they have a legit chance at an SEC? I mean, they went 8-5 last year. So obviously not the year that they wanted. But, I mean, do they have a shot at an SEC championship?
They made a New Year's Six bowl. I don't think they're still kind of looking below Alabama at this point. I don't know if they can creep their way back in there, but for an early game for Clemson, flip into that part of it, I would be a little worried about Auburn for sure. Yeah, especially if they figured out their quarterback situation.
Absolutely,
they did. Oh, I'm just looking at this now. Totally forgot about this. Jarrett Stidham, the guy from Baylor, a couple years ago that I think came in the later part of the year. He did transfer to Auburn.
Okay.
So they might have a quarterback they can rely on going forward. So.
Wow. Interesting.
Might want to watch out for Auburn.
Yeah, well, Auburn finished number 9, and the third Tiger team in the top 10 is our own Clemson Tigers. They finished 10th, but what was really surprising to a lot of people, they only signed 14 players, which is the second lowest in Dabo's tenure here at Clemson. But like we've pointed out a little bit earlier, to only sign 14 and to still be in the top 10 nationally,
it's impressive.
The next closest team is Ohio State at 21. So, there's a 7-player gap in there. And, I mean, we're still competing with teams like, we're still above teams like A&M, who signed 27, Tennessee, who signed 23, Carolina, I see down there, South Carolina signed 24, Maryland signed 29.
And I think Dabo, what he was alluding to when he said we got better, it's quality over quantity.
Right.
You can bring in all the guys you want, but when you have a championship team from last year that, let's be honest, still had some pretty good backups.
Oh, yeah.
And guys that could fill roles.
Absolutely.
I think we really filled every kind of position we really needed. There wasn't really much we had to really fill.
And with wide receiver, I mean, obviously the talk around here is wide receiver and the legacy that we've built.
Bringing T. Higgins.
Right, T. Higgins, I mean, who is an absolute monster. You have Amari Rodgers coming in. Those guys are going to be good. There's no question about it. And, you've got number 1 pocket passer, Hunter Johnson. I mean, just guys like these that will continue to build upon the foundation that's already been put in place.
And some guys that can even make immediate impacts.
Absolutely.
I mean, Hunter Johnson came onto campus early. They were talking about maybe working him in with a platoon the first couple games with maybe a guy like Zarek Cooper.
Yep.
Who, we'll all learn these guys' names eventually, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I think Dabo's got something really good going here. Post-championship, that 14 was a little alarming. But you got to really look at these guys, individually, and they look pretty good. Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously there's a lot of pressure that comes with winning a national championship, and the season after, and what the expectations are. I mean, there was the amount of pressure for this past season. After we had made it to the championship game the first time and lost. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I did not think we were going to make it back to the game. I was like, there's just no way. Like
all the close games,
2 years in a row, we didn't play well to start off the season. I really didn't think that we were going to make it back to the championship game. But, now that a lot of those guys have left and who have experienced 2 national championship games, and you have these new guys coming in, they're hungry for it, I'm sure. They've got to be hungry for it. They want to take, Clemson won the year before, so they want to get back to that stage for the university.
And the time is now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Tiger Paw has never been stronger than it is right now.
Yeah,
I mean, you got a lot of guys. We've left a great legacy here.
Yeah.
And it looks very promising going forward.
The brand recognition.
Oh,
now,
for sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
10 years ago, Clemson was still really, it was
subpar team.
somewhat on the
Yeah.
map in the Southeast. I mean, ACC, but not on a national scale like it has been in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
I still attribute the game that we played against Georgia to open the season when we beat them. I think it was
The Sammy Watkins game, right?
Was it 2013?
13? Might have been, yeah. The first game of the year.
Yeah,
I do remember that.
We beat them, and I think we shot up to like somewhere in the top 5. But I think that was the game, opened the season, ACC, SEC. Game day was a huge deal. Never mind the fact that we got blown out by Florida State. Later that year, it was.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah. But it was still Clemson's. They put their foot through the doorway into national, the ascension to national prominence.
Yeah.
And we've been on an upward trajectory ever since. So I mean, again, you can't really complain too much about Clemson's recruiting class. I mean, they're going to be enjoying one of the nicest facilities now in the country with the opening of the new facility.
And what a day! What a day yesterday was. National Signing Day. Then you have the opening up the new facility, which is absolutely top notch.
Yeah.
I mean, invested a lot of money, so I would hope it'd be that much. Yeah.
State of the art for sure. I mean, I know they have stuff like putt and bowling and the slide.
10,000 person pool.
Yeah, there's all sorts of fun things. Laser tag, right? I think laser tag is in there.
It almost feels like the White House at this point.
It does. But again, obviously that bill. I was listening to Dabo's speech when they had the ribbon cutting ceremony. They had President Clements come up and talk, and then Dabo came up and talk, and he was saying that it was a building to have fun and play and enjoy all the luxuries that are there. But at the same time, like that'll be the building where the Tigers prepare to play in Death Valley, and 30, 40, 50 years from now, that building will still be there, and it will always be where the like he said, where the Tigers prepare to play.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be one of his biggest lasting impacts here at Clemson.
Yeah.
And obviously with the national championship. But I really think that building,
it's another
it just
stepping stone
exactly
going forward.
Definitely definitively puts Clemson on the map as a blue blood college football program now.
And it sends Dabo into the top ranks of coaches at this point. I mean, it's hard to argue with that championship now that that was really the only thing he was missing was the ring.
He won the Coach of the Year twice, right? He's
two-time Coach of the Year.
Is he the first coach to do that, or was it back-to-back years?
I think it was back-to-back, yeah.
And he was the first coach to win it back-to-back.
First to do that, yeah, which is saying something in an ACC, which has a rich history, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And two-time ACC champ. So, I mean, that's just been, just keep bringing in the hardware. Yeah. That's what it is. We're going to need more space for it.
That's what it's all about right there. But no, I mean, obviously a lot of schools brought in a lot of talent, and I can't wait to watch it all unfold on the football field in August.
I know we're still months away from it, but you got a big one to start the season next year. Probably not as big of a weekend as it was this year, with like 6 ranked games, I think it was. But Bama and Florida State open the year September 3rd, playing the first game of the year.
Who do you in your we might as well pick the game, right? Who do you like in that match? Or I guess the better question is
into the future.
Does Florida State stand a legitimate chance?
Absolutely, I think they do. They don't have Dalvin Cook next year, but I think the fact that Francois, their quarterback, has an offensive line they're trying to build that could protect him a little more, because that was the one thing they really were lacking, kind of like with Lamar Jackson. I think that he's got a year that he's had with experience, and Florida State obviously bringing in a ton of recruits. It'll be an interesting first game. I think they'll both be 1 and 2.
Schools like Bama and Florida State, though, obviously they bring in a ton of recruits, and we know that Nick Saban, is able to refine those recruits and turn them into all-star players. Not saying Jimbo Fisher isn't, but it's one thing to bring in recruits. It's another thing to actually do something with them.
Of course, yeah.
Which is we've joked in the past about you got schools like I'm looking up here in like Maryland, who's in the top 20.
That's the quantity over quality.
Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't. I don't want to say it feels shallow, but at the same time, Tennessee obviously
Notre Dame is obviously up there.
Right. Well, Notre Dame is. They're 16th.
Yeah.
They're 16th. They signed 21. So I mean, not a terrible year for them by any stretch, but we'll see if Brian Kelly hangs around.
Interesting year. They have not experienced this for a while.
Yeah, I
know. Coming off a season like 4-8. Yeah.
For sure, and our Notre Dame friend will possibly be shedding a few more teams.
He is glad it is the off season. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he's ready for basketball.
Yeah,
he's ready for
basketball is here. And,
for
definitely.
sure. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this week's show. Again, it was pretty quick. We just wanted to go over National Signing Day and some of the highlights from it and Clemson's new facility. And we're going to go back to our regular, or now our new slot on Tuesdays at 8:15 in the evening. So we hope that you will join us then.
We got a lot more we could talk about with going forward, previewing teams, stuff like that,
Yep.
more discussions, maybe outside of the field.
Always something
stuff
to talk
that goes
about.
on. Seems like there's always little updates
Always.
about, people coaching changes, all that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely have a lot of stuff we can bring up.
And hopefully, again, like we mentioned earlier, we'll have some more roundtable discussions. I know that we've got a couple ideas in the works for that. Commercials are supposed to become a reality, and hopefully we'll get some guests on and be able to get a few new perspectives from different people.
Yep. Keep up with us on Twitter. We'll be posting some updates going forward, little previews to new shows. But yeah, I've enjoyed the first show back after a long little break.
It's been fun. It's been about a 2-month layoff, so I don't know if we were a little rusty. We'll have to get back and watch it and see. But it's been fun. I've enjoyed it as always. So for Bradley Kendall, I'm Jay Smith, and this has been After Further Review.
Thank you for watching.